Hi, everybody. This is Lynn Drake with Compass Commercial. And this afternoon, I have the privilege of talking to Tracy Taylor. How are you, Tracy?
Hi, Lynn. Good. How about you?
Good. And Tracy owns T2 Designs. She is the founder and owner, and they do space planning. And she's going to talk to us about that in a moment. Tracy has a Bachelor's of Fine Arts Interior Design for the University of Michigan. She's also certified with the National Council for Interior Design Qualifications. She's also certified as a leadership in energy and environmental design. You'll have to talk about that. And also evidence-based design, accreditation, and certification. Wow. She is also involved with CREW, Women in Real Estate, Society of Marketing Professional Services, and she is a past member of Vistage, and she is also a Goldman Sachs graduate.
Yes.
Which is a great program. All right. Tracy, let's get started.
Okay, great.
Why don't you tell us what you do as a designer?
Sure. So at T-Squared Designs, we're an interior design firm, and we specialize on commercial interiors. So as a designer, we're looking at everything on the interior of a space. And especially if you're looking to purchase a building, when we are involved early, we can kind of help to evaluate space and take a look at it to see how your program requirements, the things you need, are going to fit into that space. Because every building is not just a square box, right? Yes. They're always different shapes, cut into different sizes, walls that can or can't be moved. And so you could have two buildings that they're both 50,000 square feet, but one might work way better for your needs and what you're trying to accomplish than the other. So a lot of times we're involved and we help our clients to, look at different buildings and see which ones may work best for them. Once they've been able to make that decision, then we can move on and we really, start to fine tune that floor plan, select materials, finishes, the little architectural details inside that make the space yours and make it reflect your image and your corporate branding.
Yeah, I also want to put a little kudos to Tracy, because her group designed my old office space, and I loved it. It was really beautiful, and they do really great work.
Thank you.
You're welcome. One thing too, you were talking about how a different interior space can work out differently. And one of the examples that I see when I'm showing buildings is the number of columns. So if you're in an older building and it has 1 million columns in it, or a lot of columns, you're not going to be able to have the same usable square footage. So that's one of the things that she can help you with, is understanding what space is usable and what space isn't.
Right.
And then when you're leasing space, you don't want to be paying a lot of money for rent per square foot if there's a lot of columns.
Right.
Then it's not apples to apples with the new building,
as
right?
Well.
Yep. Okay, so who typically hires your organization?
We work with a variety of, sometimes it's the building owner, the CEO, to the facility manager, and we also do work in healthcare and education. So if that's the case, then it's the healthcare organization or the K through 12 school district or the college and university. But and the other one too is sometimes we get hired by the contractor that somebody's purchased a building, they want to make some renovations, and they think they kind of know what they want to do, but not as they start to get into it, they realize there's a whole lot of parts and pieces that have to fit together to have the puzzle come all together the way they want it. Mm-hmm. And so then the contractor will either hire us or recommend that they give us a call, and we'll help out from there. It's, as you know, there's a lot of moving parts, and every little change that you make to a floor plan or to a material or finish or a detail kind of has a domino effect on how it affects everything else in the space. So we're pretty good at being able to bring all those little details together and make everything hum and sing in unison.
Great. Okay, so there's decorators, there's architects, there's designers. Why don't you share with us first how a decorator is different from a designer, which is what you are.
Sure. So typically, an interior designer has a formal education in design, usually a 4-year degree. They've been educated in design, and part of that education includes understanding building codes and life safety codes as it relates to a commercial space. A decorator may or may not have any design education, and often a decorator is very good at putting colors together and developing a style and a great aesthetic, but doesn't always have the depth to go beyond that with life safety codes and flow and function the same as a designer would, who's been trained in those things in addition to the colors and styles and things like that. So that's really the biggest difference. There's a lot of really great decorators out there, but again, it goes back to more of an aesthetic and a style and a color and a knack for doing it, as opposed to having the training both in school and then ongoing continuing education type classes to stay current in those things.
Do many decorators work in commercial real estate, or do they work primarily?
Not too many.
Home? There
are a few, I think, but I know for our office, when we hire designers, you have to have a degree in design and have some experience. There's just too many things to know, and too much comes from that education to be able to learn it all in the field. And to be certified, and not all designers are certified through the NCIDQ, the National Council for Interior Design Qualification. Not all designers are certified through that. Michigan happens to be a state that doesn't have any registration of any sort for interior designers. But other states do. And so then in addition, in order to be qualified and take that exam, the NCIDQ exam, you have to have a certain amount of college education in design as well as work experience before you can take that exam. So that's kind of another qualifying, although like I said, in Michigan, that's not a requirement because there is no registered interior designers. In other states, you can be registered as an interior designer.
Great. Okay, so an architect, how are they different, and do you guys work with them, or how does that all work?
We do, and we work with architects a lot. There's a large area where we kind of work together and come together and have some overlap. We have a little bit of experience in what they're doing, and they have a little bit of experience in what we're doing, but then we both push out kind of to opposite directions in what we do. An architect deals with things that are structural, overall construction of a whole building, major renovations, those types of things. An interior designer doesn't deal with anything structural. We can move walls and those types of things, but we're not going to make structural changes to a building. And so while an architect is, deals with the interior too, and that interior envelope and the architecture of the space and what it looks like, then they also go out into the broader range of the construction and structure and the site and how it fits on the site and land and all that. Whereas an interior designer goes in the other direction and goes to a more granular detail with finishes and the furniture and just the much smaller level of detail of how you experience that space and what it feels like when you walk into the space. not just what it feels like, but how it performs, and how we deal with things like materials, whether it's on the floor or on a chair or wherever that finish is, how it's cleaned, how it harbors or repels germs, and all those types of things. So that's kind of the difference between the two. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So if, what about this question, like on, let's say I have an X-ray machine that needs extra power. Can you guys put that in your design, or do you need an architect to do that?
It depends on the level of it. And we have a variety of architects that we collaborate and team with. So
Okay.
anytime we're working on a project that starts to go out of our realm of expertise, we pull somebody in. Or if you're asking us this and you have somebody you're already working with, then we would collaborate with them.
Got it.
So, but we do frequently work with architects and architectural firms all the time. And actually, I think you would ask who hires us. Sometimes we're hired by architectural firms, either because they don't have in-house interiors, or they need some assistance or whatever. But we do work with architects frequently.
Great. Okay, so what kind of plans do you guys complete, or maybe what type of buildings do you work on?
So we do a variety. Probably the three main areas for types of buildings are office space, healthcare spaces, and education spaces. But we also do a variety of other things. Those are kind of our three main areas, but we've done banks, we do senior living, or we're working on a funeral home recently, industrial space. The only area that we don't do a lot in is residential. We really kind of focus more on the commercial, and that's primarily because commercial is just different. Other than the paint on the wall, the furniture, the carpet, all those things that you would put in your home, you wouldn't put in your office, because they're not made to withstand the use in a commercial setting. And likewise, most of the things you would put in your office, you don't need that level of durability and strength and whatnot in your home, and you want something a little homier, right?
Right. Yeah, perfect example of that would be carpet.
Right.
Because
exactly.
it gets so much use. You want to make sure it's a commercial carpet.
Yes. Yeah. So we do all types, and all of those. If we're working with you, then you're going to get a full set of plans that's going to talking about whether it's a healthcare space or an office space, walls that need to be removed, new walls that need to be added, where cabinetry gets added. All those things all get included into our plans.
Okay, so I might kind of, where you're kind of headed in the same direction. So walk us through the process. If I'm a prospective tenant and I'm looking at the square box, and we call you in, kind of walk us through the process of how you would work with that tenant.
Sure. So if you're, whether you're a prospective tenant or looking to purchase a building, we touched on a little bit earlier with helping you to evaluate space and see which spaces might work best for you. But typically, our first step would be to sit down with you and talk about what you're trying to achieve. What are your goals for the new space? What's your company do? What's the culture? What's the image you want to portray? What do you need to get into the space? Is it just, 20 offices and 50 workstations? Is it a lot of meeting space? Are there some unique specialty things? What are the features? Is there something, you have a really unique lab that you want to kind of have as a jewel and a showcase in the space? Questions like that. And as well as the obvious ones of, how many people and how many offices and things. But that's our first step, is to get to know you and get to know your company, so we understand what it is you're trying to achieve with this new space. Then once we have an understanding of that, then we can kind of put together some rough ideas on square footage that you might need. And as you start to look at spaces, You might know that you need 15,000 square feet. And again, you've got two different spaces that are 15,000 square feet. We can do some very quick, what we call block plans. There's no doors or windows or anything shown, but just boxes of how offices and conference rooms and spaces would fit into the space. So you get a sense of, one, that yes, everything I want will fit into this building or lease space. And two, how does it flow? Like, yeah, everything fits here, but the front desk to the main meeting room are 20 miles apart because it's just physically not possible to have those closer. It's too long and narrow or too spread out. So we can help you evaluate those things. So those are kind of the first initial steps. Once you have a space, then we can really dive into that floor plan, refine it, talk about the details of the space, if there's some unique ceiling features or lighting or cabinetry or something like that. So we'll go through that, work through that. It's a lot of interactive back and forth, concepts, sharing ideas, getting your input on, yes, I love it, no, I don't, in what direction to go. And then once we get to the point of looking at the materials and the finishes for the space, typically what we do is we pull a couple different palettes. And by palettes, I mean, if it's an office space, it's maybe a carpet, 3 or 4 paint colors, maybe a vinyl for a break room floor, or a solid surface like a Corian for a countertop. And it might be in the blue family. And then we pull another one that's in the orange family, or whatever it might be as far as an accent goes. One might be more blues and grays, and the other is more oranges and browns. But it gives us, and at that point, we're just looking for what resonates with you. Yuck, I hate cool grays. We don't want to go in that direction. Or this is exactly what we like, and at that point, it's not that this blue color goes on this wall to the right, but it's just in general what resonates with you. And sometimes it's then taking those and saying, I really like the grays, but instead of a blue accent, we'd rather have a red accent or an orange accent, so in tweaking those. And then once we have that sense of a good direction, then we take that and really fine tune it into how those materials, how those finishes, how all the details of the space fit and work together. And then we come back again and say, okay, now, and kind of walk through the space. When you walk into your space in the lobby, you'll have this on the floor, the ceiling, might have a unique light fixture, or the ceiling height changes and has some interesting feature to it. There might be a counter for a reception area. We'll have the specific material and details of what that counter would look like and things. And then once both the layout and all the materials and finishes and stuff have been approved, then we would put together what we would call construction drawings, which is more giving your contractor the directions so that they know each room they walk into, they can look at the plan and say, this is what's on the floor, this is what's on the north wall, the east wall, the south wall, the west wall, this is what's on the ceiling, this is a unique feature in this room. So they can walk through room by room and understand, one, to give you pricing, and two, then to order it and create the space for you.
And, some of these services the landlord pays for and some they do not, correct?
Correct.
So they would typically pay for an initial space drawing.
Often, yes.
And some the colors and the carpets, picking those out, and where the rooms go and all that stuff. But once you get to construction drawings, that could be paid out of the landlord's pocket as well. It just depends on the situation. If you're a buyer, you're going to pay for all of it. But and it's important too, if you are a tenant or a buyer, that you get an estimate, you do the construction designs or whatever, and you get an estimate of the cost before you start construction, so you don't have any surprises later.
Yes, yes. So, and the other thing too, Lynn, that I would tag on to that, especially if it's a tenant space and your landlord is, going to pay for those, say, new carpet, they're going to paint the whole space and put new carpet in. Typically, they have certain standards that they will pay for. And so we're very adept at being able to work with what those standards are. But sometimes there's standards that you want a little different image, a little more elevated image than what those standards will give to you. And as you know, then that's something you can always negotiate with that landlord too, that, maybe they will cover a little bit more and we can look a little bit outside of those standards, or maybe you have to chip in a little bit towards it and they still cover that base price, but you can just pay for an upgrade type of thing. So, so that often happens as well.
I find that with the Class A buildings, generally the carpet allowance is sufficient.
Yes.
When you get in a B and a C, it's not, and that's the reason the rents are different. I don't think people realize that when you're in a Class A building, you'll get, even your doors are upgraded and they're taller and your carpets are graded, and they come with way more stuff, and people don't always realize that when they're looking at space, that they might pay a little more money for this nicer building over here, but they're actually going to get more out of that building. But if you're being, if you have a budget and you need to go into a small, less space, you just have to realize that you might, if you go with that cheaper carpet, you're probably going to have to replace it at some point.
Yes.
So, anyways.
Yeah,
my
and
phone on
the other
vibrate.
thing, and it's not even just carpet, Lynn, there's other things too, like you mentioned the doors. Oftentimes in a Class A type building space, those doors will be a solid core versus a hollow door. Yep. So one, when you open and close it, it might feel a little heavier, but the bigger thing you'll notice is when the door is closed, you're still going to get some sound transmission, but it's going to buffer that noise a little bit better than that hollow door that's much thinner and is almost like a sheet of paper hanging there.
Right.
So, and same thing sometimes on drywall too, different thicknesses of drywall, and that can make a big difference as well. Or the quality of the ceiling tile. Some ceiling tile absorbs sound more than others and keeps it from bouncing around the room more than others. So those are all different things that you don't, just as walking through, you don't always catch. But like you said, it certainly makes a difference and impacts the overall cost.
Yep.
Rates.
So how do you decide like where the office is going versus the conference room versus the kitchen? How do you just determine that stuff?
There's a few factors that weigh in. One factor is if it's an existing building where plumbing is. So if there's some toilet rooms, for example, if we can get the break room or additional toilet rooms or something like that not too far away from there, that's going to save you some money because you're not moving plumbing to the opposite end of the building or something like that. So that's one factor to always think about. And it's not to say that it can't be done. It's just always, less expensive if you can keep it near where you already have plumbing in the building. For a multi-tenant building, for example, when you've got those toilet rooms that everybody uses out in the main corridor, if you're able to tap in with a break room, on the other side of that wall, if that's in your suite or nearby there, that certainly helps to save some costs. The other factor is your company. What are you trying to achieve? Sometimes there's some companies, we want the break room at the back. We want a kitchen in it. We want it, but we want it at the back. It's just for employees. A trend we're seeing, or have been, things I'm sure will change a little bit now, but is those break rooms becoming part of the open office, open cafes, that they're kind of a feature. People work from that cafe space. They have small meetings. They bring clients to that space. So then then that plays a role in where that's located on the plan, because you want it somewhere, one, that it's not going to be disruptive to the people around working around it, but also that it's kind of prominent and a feature of your space.
Mm-hmm.
So same thing on conference rooms. Sometimes people want a conference room right off their main entrance.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have salespeople coming in or something, they can meet right there. They don't have to walk them all the way through, have the salesperson saying hi and interrupting multiple people. They can get them in, get them out, share information and whatnot. Other times, again, it goes back to, I want to be able to show off the space. I want to walk my clients through the space and take our clients to this featured conference space in the back. And in the process, they get to see us and see how we work and things like that. So a lot of it just depends, on what your goals are. And same thing for windows. Some office spaces want all their private offices on the windows. And then if we do that, we always encourage to add glass in the doors or a glass side light, a window beside the door, just so that it can let some natural light into the inner parts of the office area. It really opens it up. It makes everybody feel better, and to bring some natural light in. But other times, we have other clients that want that light to be shared with everyone and would prefer to put the private offices and the conference rooms in the center of the building, and then keep workstations and collaborative areas out along the perimeter where everybody has access to those views.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of personal to the company.
It is.
It's a cultural thing, really.
Yes. Yep.
Oops, sorry. Let's see. I want to ask, before we get into the changes due to the pandemic, I wanted to bring up your furniture. You help companies purchase furniture, and I particularly like your process because it's the same as my process. So why don't you talk about that to the audience? Because I think that's, if I'm going to get someone to buy furniture, I'm probably going to hire you because of your process. So why don't you share that?
Sure. So we're well versed in commercial furniture. We work with all the different manufacturers, whether that's Steelcase or Hayworth or All Steel or Herman Miller, Knoll, or any of the other bajillion other what they call open lines. But there's tons and tons of furniture products out there. So we're not selling it and we're not making a commission on any of it. So we're coming at furniture, looking at it of what is going to best fit your needs. And by your needs, that's how it functions, how it fits your budget, what it looks like, all those things that are important to you and your project. So we can then kind of zone in on, this particular line might be a great fit for you, or maybe there's a couple, but either way, we can really zone in on what's the best fit for you to meet your needs. And then from there, we can do one of two ways, and it really kind of depends on exactly what it is that looks like it's going to be a good fit. Sometimes maybe there's something really specific about a line that works really well for your company, and that's the only furniture manufacturer that can provide it. And if that's the case, then we would reach out to that dealer and help to negotiate for you great pricing. But other times, it's kind of like buying a car. I can get this sedan from Ford or Chevy or any number of manufacturers, right? And they all have little things that are a little bit better, and something else that's not quite as important to me, but they're all have, one particular sedan that is very similar, right? And so with scenarios like that, and that's often the case, we're able to then reach out to multiple furniture dealers and request quotes. So put it out to bid. And usually by this stage, we've also really gotten to know you. So we know your personality, and because we work with all the different dealers, we also have a good sense for, well, let's ask this company to, provide a bid. Here's 2 or 3 companies that would be a good fit that we think you would be really happy with, and they give good service and whatnot, because we understand what you're after too. So that's how we do it. And then, once we put it out to bid, we'll help you evaluate those bids. Because if you've ever looked at a furniture quote, if you're not familiar with it, it's kind of like trying to read another language sometimes.
They're very complicated because there's
right.
a lot of things and you need to know what to look for.
Right.
I would have no clue.
And if you're not careful in, asking for those quotes, you can get apples and oranges without even realizing it. So we're able to, one, ask for those quotes so that we're doing our very best to make sure you're only getting apples. And then once you get them, we'll review them and kind of give you our evaluation of this one is, 5% less. Here's what is different about it. Or 10% or whatever the difference is.
Right.
And sometimes people will say, that's okay. I really like the other product better. It has this one feature that I absolutely love, and we want to do that instead, even though it's 5% more. And other times it's, we don't see a reason not to save the 10 or 20% of going with this lower cost one, because it looks like, we realize that we're going to save 10%, but we're also giving up this one feature, but we'd rather save the 10%. So we can really help you to kind of walk through that and understand, it's ultimately, you have to decide which is more important, the feature or the value, the cost.
Right, exactly.
But there's some scenarios when the cost is more important, and there's other scenarios where there's a specific feature that's worth that additional cost. So, yeah,
I think it's super important because then you can see the true cost as well. I didn't know you. Actually, when you did my office space, my design, hadn't met you yet. I don't know if you know that.
No, I don't think we had.
No, we had not met yet.
The other designers
I found out later when we met you that you were, I knew it was your firm because your name was on the on the stuff. But I know that just getting the furniture for that, I had somebody that was like dragging me around town to look at all this furniture. And I'm like, I don't have time for this. Just tell me, send me a picture. I can't research it. I don't have time. So I know that if I had known you, I would have used your service because it would have saved me a tremendous amount of time. And not only that, I mean, I am particular about how things are, but you have a much better eye than I do. You're going to see things that I would never see in that furniture. Same thing with the design. I mean, that's what you specialize. You're more detail oriented. That's not my specialty. So, anyway.
My specialty is not reviewing the leases either and negotiating the leases. So, I would turn to you for that.
Okay, so today's date is August 14th, 2020 when we're recording this. And we are in the Detroit, Michigan area. And I don't know, the pandemic is still here. We're still living as if it's horrible. It's getting better. But what are you seeing from a design perspective? And do you have a long-term thought on it too?
Yeah, I think we're seeing people very slowly start to trickle back to the office a little, some more than others. But I think the pandemic has really turned on its head how people think about work. And that you don't have to be sitting at a desk from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 8 to 5 or whatever your hours are to be working, that it's now been proven that you can work from home or work from another location and still accomplish things. We can still accomplish meetings just like right now without meeting in person. We can do things virtually. So I've heard predictions of anywhere from 15 to 30% of office workers will continue to be virtual. So, and that's at least, that could be forever, right? Some offices aren't bringing people back until January of 2021. Others will be even past that. Major companies, Twitter, Google, some of those have said, workers can remain virtual indefinitely. So I think what we're going to see is a change in the office environment and how it's used. There's going to be some workstations, some offices that are still used in the traditional format where somebody comes in, the same person comes in, sits at that desk all day, every day, and they're in the office every day, either because their job really needs them to be there, or they're a person that prefers to work from the office. But I think we're going to see a lot of flexible spaces and flexible time where I might work from home 3 days a week and just be in the office 2 days. So those 2 days I might be sharing with someone, or it might just be I pick an open desk, and obviously in pandemic times you would be cleaning it when you get there and cleaning it when you leave, right? Yeah. But you would have like a touchdown desk where you could make your space for the day, and if you come back the next day, you may use the same one or you might use a different one. So I think we're going to see an increase in those flexible type spaces. And then the other thing I think we're going to see is, and especially in existing spaces, I think we're going to see private offices becoming more meeting and collaboration type spaces. So people that don't need to come in and use that private office anymore, that might get flipped and become a meeting space, so that when people do need to meet face-to-face in person, that they have a space to do that. So I think we'll see more conference, meeting, gathering, collaborative type spaces becoming more and more prominent in the office environment, less permanent office space, and then more of that flexible / touchdown type space. So, but it's the pandemic. Everything changes every few days, so we could all be wrong.
I don't know. We were talking with our partners out of New York, and just nothing's happening in there. And I feel there's traffic again. So a lot of people got to be to work. And here in Michigan, I mean, there's traffic. Right. Grocery stores aren't so full on Saturdays and Sundays anymore. I don't know. Yeah. That's going to be an interesting thing. Okay, so you also pivoted a little bit with your business during this, and you decided to come up with some at-home work environments. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, actually, we've done a couple of things. One is we developed a website for home office furniture, especially as this began looking more and more like everybody wasn't just working from home for a couple of weeks. It was going to be a long-term thing. So we launched a website to sell furniture for your home office. And it's furniture that, the chairs have adjustability. It's meant to be an office, not just a little desk in the corner or working on the dining room table, but designated space that can meet your needs, much more similar to your office that you've left. So we launched a website for that. And then the other thing we've done too is we've also launched, we're doing scans of interior spaces.
Oh, that's right.
So if you have a space that you are trying to sell and you don't have any blueprints of it, you don't have any floor plans, we can come in and do a scan of the space, which creates a virtual walkthrough that you can feel like you're walking through the space and actually see it without having to come and walk through it. And it will also create a floor plan. So for marketing purposes, one, you can have this walkthrough, and two, you can have a floor plan that you can see how the space currently lays out. So that's another thing we've started doing throughout all this.
Yeah, the floor plans are important. And I'll give you an example. I'm working with a doctor right now, and we're looking to relocate him to a newer building. And, the cost to build out a medical suite is super high. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to see if we can find a building that's as is, or maybe just needs one change, another doctor's office. And if you don't have the blueprints, or I can't get an idea of how it's laid out, it's harder for me to say, hey, let's go over here and look at it if 5 of the 6 have the design and yours doesn't. We probably still go look at it, but it saves us a lot of time, particularly with the doctor. We don't want to waste their time looking at properties that aren't going to meet their criteria.
Right. And you might find one, you might have 4 different properties, and if 3 of them have floor plans and it looks like at least 2 of them are really viable, you may not bother with that 4th one to even go look at it, because you've got 2 or 3 good options that you don't have to leave your home or leave your office to go look at.
Exactly. Yeah.
Got a good sense. So.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, you could show them 100 buildings, but they're not going to remember them. I know that.
Right. Yep.
Because that happens all the time. Not that I show 100 buildings, but they go out with me for 6 buildings and they're like, I don't remember. Anyway.
Yes.
All right. Anything else that you want to share with us?
I don't think so. I'd be happy to share a couple links if you'd like.
Oh, absolutely.
So the home office furniture and these virtual walkthroughs and floor plans that we talked about, both of those you can find on our T2To-Go website. It's T and the number 2, TOGO.com. And then once you're there, you go to homework for the home office furniture and blueprint for the virtual tours and whatnot. And there's contact info on there and stuff too. And then our commercial interior design office, that is T2designsinc.com. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but it's T and the number 2, designs, DESIGNSINC.com. So, and again, on there as well, there's a contact info. You can shoot us an email. Our phone number is on there. Talk to myself or any of the designers here, and we're always happy to help.
Okay, and one thing I just realized, what areas do you cover for design?
Primarily Southeast Michigan, but we've done work all over the state of Michigan, including the UP, and we're not really limited in just Southeast Michigan. We can go anywhere, and we're actually in the process of putting together some virtual services as well. So we'd be able to help you with design things that without having to meet or having to go on site, that we'd have some packages for that. So
good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my guest today was Tracy Taylor of T2 Designs. And thank you so much for your time. I certainly appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. It was fun. It was great to catch up.